Come on. Yeah. Break down, come on.
Welcome back, guys, once again to 30 Minutes of Life. I am Ryan Anderson, and joining me for this particular episode is...
Dan Jakubczak, one of the designers for the out-of-the-box card game, Gordian Layers.
Dan approached me as a friend and fan of ours about a new product that he's doing. And Dan, what is the new product that you're trying to get out into the market?
It's called Gordian Layers Portal Bound. It's a location control card game.
Okay. So for you guys who don't know out there, actually, my best friend Troy Heinrich, who was on a 30 Minutes of Life episode, I think it was the ones where we were talking about like Batman v Superman and PCs versus something else. I don't even remember. But they were fun episodes that we did back in, I think, 2016. Dan actually was one of the former roommates of Troy, and he has been a friend of mine for quite some time, and we're glad to have you on.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Yeah. So that being the case, tell us more about this product.
So, like I said, it's a location control card game. My friends and I have been designing it for a number of years. I work with two other guys, Jack and John, and
Okay.
they've been friends of mine since we were itty-bitty. We've designed a lot of games. We did a Zelda one. We did a Lego one. Like we've done a bunch of different things, but we finally struck on an idea that made sense to make into an actual game that, didn't infringe on a bunch of copyrights.
Yeah.
And so we've been developing it for a while, and we finally hit the point where we think it's cleaned up, and now we're running a Kickstarter in order to get enough money to fund the art for the game.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. First, you were talking about the type of card game this is. Could you go and further elaborate as to what that means? Because that's a new term to me.
Sure. So location control. Sometimes, in games you're putting down meeples, you're rolling dice, you're, there's any number of different mechanics that make a game work.
Sure.
And so our card game, each player is fighting over the same set of locations.
Oh, okay.
You're trying to gain control of these cards as the end of game condition. If the first person to 5 wins is basically what the rule is.
That's an interesting structure. I like that. Let's get into the actual understanding of where this idea came from. What sparked your interest in going in this particular path?
So we've been big Magic players for a long time. We played the Magic card game. We played the Pokemon card game. We played the old wrestling card game. So we've just been way into card games for a long time. And so when we started designing this, we were hoping to step into that arena.
Gotcha.
But after a while during the design process, we figured, the three of us with our minimal budget can't really cut that. So we changed our focus into more of an out-of-the-box card game where everything comes in the box. You've played Dominion with us before.
Oh, all the time. It's so good.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like that. Everything you need to play is in the box, and all the rules are there, so there's no booster packs. There's no expansions planned just yet. It's going to just be our 6 different factions and pieces to play it, and you pick it up and you can go.
Okay. Now, with this sort of game, was this just an inspiration of you wanting to have the game you've always wanted, or was it essentially seeing the flaws of maybe another game and going like, this is how we would improve on it, might as well make it our own special game? What was it for you that made you want to actually build it for yourself?
It's just the creative aspect, because we've had a lot of opportunities to hang out and play test games. We've designed games. So for us, this final product is a kind of a combination of, these other card games are good, but, here's our creative outlet. We have been told it kind of feels like Smash Up in some ways. It kind of uses the discard mechanic that some other games have used. It's it comes from our Magic background, where we would like the competitive card games and the strategy involved therein. We like the out-of-the-box board games like Dominion. So it's kind of a meeting between our card game and board game desires and our own creative outlet.
Oh, okay. Now, one thing that I know, especially from back in the day, I used to be very much about Yu-Gi-Oh!, much to the chagrin sometimes of you, because you'd look at Troy and I when we'd be playing it like, you guys need to get into Magic. And then, of course, Troy would. But there was always a feeling with the games that I recall playing in terms of cards and all that stuff, where there's some level of exclusivity or that special card that everyone wanted to have because it gave them some level of advantage. Do you feel like that's something that you want to incorporate into your game, or is that something you're shying away from just to keep it relatively balanced?
We're definitely going to shy away from that.
Okay.
We want to give everyone a fair chance, and that's also kind of why we designed the game the way we did. There's kind of two game modes. There's the way that you can play by faction. So there's 6 factions designed at this point. Each have their own particular rules set and their own kind of feel to them. There's the robots, the knights, the forest folk, the kind of like dark librarians, magician users. There's the kind of 1950s film noir, private investigators, pilots and stuff. And then there's these like kind of mutated, pathetic, like wanderers. And so you can play just straight one of those. Just pick the one you want to play and put it in front of you and go. Or there's like a drafting mechanic similar to something like Smash Up, where you can mix and match the factions. So it helps to negate that feeling of, I always get stuck with this faction, or my faction can't do something your faction can do.
Right.
So to answer your question, like we're avoiding that, and also giving everyone who plays the game a chance to mix it up and try something different each time.
So essentially, the real strategy is not about getting the best card, but coming up with the best strategy.
Yeah, you have to understand what your faction is able to do, and then be able to execute that gameplay.
I really like that. Now, I know you said no expansions, but if you were to expand, do you have any ideas for the future with it if your project was to kind of take off?
Oh, yeah, we've designed thousands of cards.
Oh, okay.
Dominion's got a bunch of expansions.
Oh, yeah, they do.
But for us, we wanted to, if this goes well, and, based on our individual lives, we may just have this one and done, but, if it goes well and we're able to pick it back up in the future, we have a number of other factions designed, and then I feel safe in saying there's hundreds of other cards for each of the factions that are in the box too.
Okay.
So we've been working on it for years, so there's lots of stuff to work with. This is just the stuff that we feel makes the cut for if we were to design the game one time and call it a day after the fact.
Okay. Now, I was thinking of saving this towards the end, but I think we're kind of in the mode of what the product is. What would you plan to sell this for? What is your retail price point that you're shooting for at this time?
Right around 60. So we're working with the Game Crafter.
Okay. And who would that be?
They're a That's what the name of the publishing company we're using is called.
Oh, okay.
They make all the pieces, they print all the cards, they put it in the box, wrap it up, and send it off to our consumers.
Okay, very good.
And that's also the lowest pledge point on our Kickstarter to get a copy of the game, the early bird version.
Okay. We'll remind everyone at the very end about it too. But now go into the Kickstarter. Like, what is the tiers that you guys are working with? How is this working for you guys to get this thing kickstarted?
It's going pretty well. We're down to a week left.
Okay.
And we're just we're 2/3 of the way there. So the different levels of it is like your typical $1, $15. Backings,
mm-hmm.
but the project, if you want a copy of the game, starts at 60.
Okay.
And the 60 gets you the early bird version. And now I say this part because we're doing things a little bit backwards because we don't have any artistic background ourselves.
Fair enough.
So we're having to reach out to artists and have them craft some of some of the, or all of the, excuse me, all the images you're going to see in the game.
Okay.
But because none of us are very wealthy individuals,
Sure.
Good art is expensive.
Yeah.
How we're going to work it is the $6 early bird version. Once we've successfully gotten the Kickstarter, we're going to take that money and put it towards the art. And then once all the art is completed, we're then going to send out the game. So
Okay.
our shot is, if this Kickstarter finishes and we're successful, by June of next year, the art should be finished. And then we will ship out the game to the early bird people first, and then everybody else after that.
Oh, very cool. Well, if you do happen to run into any roadblocks there, regardless, I do know some people in the industry who would probably be able to help you for a very nominal fee. So that's very cool,
awesome.
though. Yeah, so I'll try and help you out any way that I can. Also, at the end, too, if you have any social media plugs, we would love to throw it out to anyone who would be interested in sharing with the community. That being said, I wanted to go into the process for you. Now, when you were coming up with this game, was there any roadblocks or problems that you experienced that you came out with as a learning experience?
Oh man, so much. Like even now, I'm still learning. You know, every day learning something new.
Okay.
The reason I was actually brought into the game is because, and I don't know how the other guys feel about it, but the reason I was brought in as the third member was because Jack and John like to butt heads. They're so creative, and sometimes they can just like spitball off of each other and just like come up with these extraordinary things. But then other times they're both so passionate in the opposite directions that they needed somebody to break a tie.
Oh, okay.
So I think our biggest roadblock was ourselves. You know, just figuring out how to like put one thing down in one set of rules and like, let's try this and then see if it works. Okay, then let's try this and see if it works. So our first roadblock was ourselves, but then beyond that is figuring out which way to take our game.
Yeah. And so were you more of the ideas man, or were they the ideas man and you were kind of finding the common ground between the two?
Oh, those two are the masterminds for sure. For sure, they're two incredibly creative individuals, and like I've loved working with them. And you know, again, I've known them for ages and ages. But not to say that I didn't design any cards myself. I was going to say a bunch of cards that I feel really proud of, and like the game itself, we're all really proud of. Yeah. But they are certainly the masterminds. They're really creative, and they can get into stuff like really deep. The concept of the game, these Gordian Layers, Jack and John developed after many evenings together after playing Magic or at a place we called the Loft to hang out at. Nice. And the idea is that it's kind of a multiverse sort of situation. All of the factions reside on their own layers, and the layers are held together in this sort of like complex web of physics that John understands that is kind of beyond me. He uses string theory and other ideas like that to help explain how it goes together. Yeah, like I said, he got into it. He's a sharp dude.
That's impressive. I was actually going to say, it sounded like you were just like hammering out the mechanics of like how much battle damage this and that does. But wow, if you're going that deep, that's very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of fluff around the game. You know, one of the things that really brings the game to life, like Magic or Dominion or D&D or Warhammer, is that fluff around it. You know, there's that little quote at the bottom of the card, or the little quote in the rule book that brings you in that much further. So we have a lot of that as well. Yeah. One of our stretch goals is to have a little booklet. 50 or 60 pages, I guess that's not little, but a storybook for how all of the layers cooperate, or individual stories that bring the layers to life.
So essentially like a guide to the universe, or?
Yeah, a guide, storybook, a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
That's very cool. Now, obviously this is very in the optimistic realm, but further down the road, do you see maybe multimedia or other variant opportunities for this, or do you want to keep it in the card realm?
Well, there's the digital card games that are really popular right now. Hearthstone's real big. Troy and I played this card game that's somewhere between Dominion and I guess you could say Magic. It's a location control card game. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a digital version of that. I mean, there's even a digital version of even bigger games now, like Scythe. So we would have no issue, and we thought about going that way, but we just don't have access to the people that can make that happen.
Right.
So we're going to stick this way first, and then maybe go towards the digital version later.
Okay. Yeah, because I was remembering that I helped kickstart Boss Monster back. That must have been like in 2016.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was one of the ones that's tried to get that off the ground, and then I went digital with it, and Troy had like zero interest in it whatsoever. And, you know, I mean, it's a good game, but we haven't really picked it up since. And I'm hoping to encourage him to get back into it because it is a digital format, and with me now living so far away, I think the digital space is a great way for people from far distances to pick up the same sort of game that they loved in a physical format, but just now in the digital realm. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I really think that that's a good opportunity to explore. Obviously, you guys have been clearly masterminding a whole game plan for this thing. Now, what is your plan for the actual release date with this? And do you have any layering to this? Like, do you want to maybe even do a play test with some of the fans, maybe local in your area, that they can check it out before they invest in the game?
Yeah, so there's actually, like you're saying, using this digital world we live in, there's a free print and play version on our Kickstarter page and on our website. So we're basically giving away a digital version of the game, so that people will try it and hope. There's no art on it yet, but it has all the information to play the game, and hopefully, if people get excited about it, then they'll want to back the Kickstarter. Because you know, one of the most important things is to give people a game they like. So we wanted to be fair, knowing that we can't give you the full game right away. We can at least give you a version of it to make sure you like it. And then if you like it, you can then support us.
See, and that's the best way. The first taste should always be free. And then once you get them hooked, you just keep them playing. And, you know, like, you don't even have to make it a drug. People get addicted to things on their own. All you got to do is just put that little bit out there.
World of Warcraft, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. So what else do you see for the future of this game? Is there any other details that we haven't discussed that you would like our fans to know about?
Big things for the future of the game. I think the neatest thing that we're going to do is put out the storybook. I think that's, you know, something a little bit different than maybe some other games offer. I'm not going to say all games. I'm not going to say this is a unique idea, but that's exciting to me because I don't view myself as much of a writer. Yeah. But I have this concept for one of the characters from the Lair of Wodas. That's the knights. They live on kind of a big open plain. It's a prosperous kingdom. Cool. But the game is set right when the layers start to interact. So the portals open. They're exposed to each other. These developed civilizations that didn't know each other existed, and there's some tension there. And so my story is around the tension of one of these knights and his dealings with his commander being lost and having to be charged with victory. He's the guy that has to make it happen because there's nobody else. So wow, I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, because I that's out of my comfort zone. Designing a game is kind of like writing, but this is I have much more respect for writers now after trying to step into that realm myself. Yeah.
So the way that you kind of pitched that just there, it almost kind of sounded like back when we used to play like StarCraft or Warcraft. Like, do you see this, as I kind of mentioned before, ever going into a different realm where you can take the characters and spin them off into other formats where you can play as maybe everyone's favorite character? I couldn't even pronounce that last one.
I don't know if it'll ever get that big.
Okay.
But, that would really be something. Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to it because, like I said, we have a lot of fluff and a lot of thought that has gone into the world. Yeah. But at this point, I think because we spent so much time on it, John has children now. Jack just bought his first house. I teach for a living, so for me, I think we would be happy if the Kickstarter got funded, and if we could hold a finished copy of the game in our hands and say, like, we did this, I think we would be really, really stoked about that, because we put so much, emotional time into it. We spent so much effort and talking back and forth. Like, it would just be awesome to say that somebody else enjoys our game, and then we have a real copy of it printed out. You know that new card smell?
Oh, exactly. Smell? Yeah.
If I could crack open that box, man, and have that smell and know that that's what my game smells like, that would be something.
Absolutely. Yeah, holding that physical product in your hand that just says, I actually did this, that's really all you can ask for, and like the best feeling in the world. So
you got to feel that every week, knowing that you're putting out a podcast and people are listening to it.
I'm trying.
That's got to be a pretty good feeling for you.
So for our fans, actually, some know that are like really in the know, like in our DMs of Twitter and stuff like that I've conversed with. But yeah, we're working on our website right now, and that's consumed a lot of my time. So that's that. Once I get a website that really feels fleshed out and feels up there in the big leagues of all the other people reporting news, I'm going to have that same feeling of accomplishment. Like, it's finally up there. We're trying to bring on some new writers and that sort of thing. So when I take this next step with the show that I've been trying to do, I'll feel really good about that as well. I'll know how you feel. So I have one final question before we wrap this all up here. And this is more of a personal question to you. So sure. I remember that you were making cards of your own for quite a while. And I was not aware of your current partners at the time when you were making those cards. Did any of those cards, A, leak it into your current game, or B, was there any feeling of like, I have to at least try and give some of my influence from that game into this one?
Yeah, for sure. We've gone through so many iterations of the game, so many major rules changes. I bet you, like, on a grand scale, I bet there's been a half a dozen major rules changes from the very start of the game. Because, like I said, we didn't have a location control game in our sites when we first started designing.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the cards that you saw way back when we were using like Magic Set Editor and moving all these things around in Dropbox and like printing them out on my little cheapo printer and cutting them up and putting them in sleeves and with like Pokemon cards behind them.
Yeah.
Like that. Some of those cards made it, but they're cleaned up now.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I that's what I would just wanted to say was that's awesome. I mean, really though, because I remember distinctly like the white cutout cards that were like, it was just hand drawn, the best that you could come up with for the art. And I was just like, I know it's going to be something, but it's just fun to use my imagination with what I was seeing then. And to see you've come this far with it is just so impressive.
Thanks,
it's evolved to this point that you're now, you said 2/3 of the way to your goal?
Yeah. So, the way we blocked it out right now is, $6,000 is our goal.
Okay.
We're just shy of 4. We have 32 backers. We got a week left. But then we also have some stretch goals on top of it. On the Kickstarter page, there's been a couple pieces of art that we've paid for out of pocket just to kind of give people a feel for our different factions.
Sure.
And we've got some really talented artists. But our stretch goals from here, $6,000 is fully funded to finish off the art. And then we have a couple stretch goals beyond that. $6,200 for a better looking rule book, $6,700 for tokens and meeples that are a little bit sharper, and then $7,200 for the base game upgrade with more diplomacy tracks, with more locations and things like that.
Okay. Now, I'll be totally honest, the meeples and the diplomacy tracks, that might go over some other people's heads like it just did mine. Would you care to elaborate on those real quick?
Sure, you bet. So the way the game works, and I'll give you the brief overview, is on our turns, we share a turn. So if you sit down across from me, I play a card, you play a card, I play a card, you play a card. Once I choose to stop playing cards, my part of the shared turn's not over yet. So what I then do is start moving my characters to the different locations to indicate which ones I want to try and take control of.
Okay.
If you and I fight over them, if I come out the victor, then I may get the reward for the location. But we have a charisma stat that even if I am stronger than you, if I beat you in combat, if you're more charismatic, you can still get part of the reward for the location. So it kind of balances out the game and makes it less swingy. And then what you do with that reward is you take your meeple, the little person look-alike.
Oh, sure. Okay.
On these tracks, you then move your meeple towards a reward. So you get a reward for winning the location, and that pushes you in a track. And the tracks can be things like making your character stronger or making it more difficult for me to conquer a location, things like that. So you get to kind of affect the way the game is played, and I have to adjust my strategy based on that.
Okay.
So we found the game to be very balanced because a lot of the times games can be swingy where if I win that first battle, then I'm at a distinct advantage, and we've always felt like this version of our rule set allows for even the players who are behind to feel like they're still in it. There's still a chance for them to come back.
I really like
and
that.
It's a significant chance. You don't really know who's going to win it on any given turn because of the way some of these rules are designed.
Yeah. Well, because it's great that you say that too, because I remember distinctly, like when we would play Risk, for example, every time you give Troy just an inch, I mean, he would take it by a mile, and like you had no chance for recovery,
Isn't he a fiend? He's so good at that.
He's the worst. And also the best at that game. But anyways, I think that's really awesome. I am very excited for your game, and I encourage everyone who has just the most minuscule amount of interest in this to do a little bit of research, follow up on their Kickstarter, check it out for yourself. Maybe if you live in the Midwest, you'll get a chance to even play test it yourself one day. But is there any sort of social media plugs you'd like to talk about real quick, where they can find your stuff, web pages, all that stuff, so people can find you as quick as possible?
Yeah, you bet. So our Kickstarter is for Gordian Layers. I'll spell it for you.
Okay.
Gordian Layers, Layers. And that's a Kickstarter, Gordian Layers Portal Bound. We have a website by the same name.
Oh, okay.
So GordianLayers.com.
Perfect.
And then I run the Instagram for us. John put together our publishing name because he's got some other board games in the works.
Okay.
It's called Crafty Lupine Publishing.
Crafty Lupine. Okay.
Yeah, and I can send you all the links at the end of the interview. But
that'd be great.
So we have 3 different ways to get a hold of us.
Okay. Now, do you have any Facebook or Twitter? Because we're very socially active there, and we would love to get it out to our fan base that way as well, if you've got it.
Sure. So the Facebook is kind of light at this moment.
Okay.
It's going to be an opportunity where it's going to be our place to ask questions about the game. So like if you have a copy and you're not sure how to proceed on the game, it's going to be a way for any players to interact with me.
Nice.
And be able to get questions answered.
A little help center. I like it.
It's also under the Crafty Lupine Publishing.
Oh, okay, perfect. So you just in Facebook you search Crafty Lupine Publishing?
Yeah, Lupine.
Perfect. Okay. Anything for Twitter at all?
No, Twitter I have not delved into yet.
All right. Well, I'll try and use Twitter to direct people to Facebook for you then.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel, for coming on. I think for 30 Minutes of Light, this has been a fantastic episode where we got to learn a little bit how the game process works. I am Ryan Anderson, and
I'm Dan.
And we will see you guys again another time.
Yeah.